Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Alberdingk Boley Tech TV. My name is Markus Dimmers, and I'm going to present to you today some novel multi-phase acrylic dispersions for architectural paints. We will be talking about two products, Alberdingk AC 3626 and Alberdingk AC 3600. So when we've been looking at developing new products for the architectural market, we've been looking at which are the key aspects for a low VOC water-based architectural paint. And basically, I think we will all agree that open time and application properties are a key factor, as well as the blocking resistance, or what we would call the snap drying, hand-fed resistance. General chemical resistance is also important, meaning alcohol, ammonia, hand-fed coffee, red wine, and water resistance. And finally, if we talk about products which are mainly sold into the do-it-yourself market, the adhesion to different substrates is key. So people in do-it-yourself will not use primers, so they would like to rely on something that has direct adhesion to galvanized steel, aluminum, or certain plastics. So before starting the development, we've been looking at what is the state of the art in technology from today's point of view, and we have categorized that into three different product or chemistries. One is traditional acrylic emulsions, another one is alkyd emulsions, and the third one is polyurethane or urethane acrylics. If we look at the properties, we will have to check things like the gloss level, open time, blocking resistance, the price level, hardness, and the non-yellowing properties. And as you can see, gloss is definitely the best with alkyds, also pretty good with urethanes or urethane acrylics. Traditional acrylics are slightly inferior in that respect. Open time, again, significant advantage of alkyds. Polyurethanes are doing okay. Traditional acrylics are usually fairly short in open time. That means that flow and leveling is not perfect. Blocking resistance, that's one of the things where polyurethanes stand out, simply because they are not thermoplastic. Traditional acrylics are also pretty good, and that's where alkyds usually fall short because the drying just takes a long time. Then looking at price levels, here acrylics for the first time can certainly show their strength. They are the most economic products. Alkyds and polyurethanes are usually a bit more expensive, especially when it's a urethane modified alkyd. Hardness is another thing that's important for these kind of products. Again, acrylics and polyurethanes have a very high hardness. Alkyds, because of the slow drying speed and some other factors, are usually behind that. And then the last point on our list is the non-yellowing properties. Again, acrylic doesn't yellow, so that's very good in acrylics. Usually also pretty good in polyurethane and urethane acrylics. And again, because of the unsaturation, the alkyds usually fall short in their yellowing resistance. So we've been looking at what are the key properties that we need, what is the state of the art in technology. So what have we done to develop something new? We simply took two main features and try to combine them in a new product family. One is extended open time, and the other one is enhanced blocking resistance. So put the two things together, and we got a new family of products, which is called the Alberdingk AC 36XX family. And I will tell you more about it in the next slides. So how does the Alberdingk AC 36XX family actually work? Here you see a particle of a dispersion. You have the let's say the core particle, you see a shell. The shell is being characterized by the stabilization system. We have a grafted and strong electrosteric stabilization here on this particle. We get a particle which is hydrophilic, but without compromising its resistance properties. That's very important. And because of the hydrophilicity, we also get a more Newtonian rheology, simply because our associative thickeners that we use are relying on hydrophobic anchor points. So if we have a particle which is more hydrophilic, we have less anchoring, and therefore we have a more Newtonian flow behavior. So how does that now compare to a conventional acrylic? Conventional surfactant stabilization. So again, on the left-hand side, you see our 36XX family with a grafted electrosteric stabilization, and you see, let's say, the hydrophilic part of the polymer, which is connected with a particle, and you see the anion cloud. In comparison to that, on the right-hand side, you see a standard acrylic dispersion particle stabilized with surfactants and acids. You see non-ionic surfactants, you see anionic surfactants, and you see anions. And what you can probably already determine is that the amount of anion charge is much lower on the conventional surfactant compared to the 36XX family. And that is the main difference, that we have a much more anionic charge polymer, and therefore we get these more Newtonian rheology. So how does that impact the open time? What does the stabilization actually do? So the 36XX family has a very, very high and strong repulsive force in between the particles. That means that the time until the particles will actually collapse and film form is longer, so there is more time for flow and leveling. And as I've mentioned before, we have a more hydrophilic particle surface, so less interaction with associative thickeners. Conventional acrylics are weaker in their repulsive force in between the particles, so the coalescence is actually quicker because there is less repulsion to overcome, and you have a more hydrophobic particle surface, which you can immediately see by the much stronger thickener response of these products. So if we look at it, you see here two particles of the 36 family. You see two arrows with a strong repulsive force indicator. You get the longer open time and the Newtonian rheology. If we look at the conventional acrylic, you see there's only one arrow, and the arrow is significantly smaller, trying to show that this means this is a weaker repulsive force, and because of that, shorter open time and stronger thickener response. So we've been talking about the fact that it's a hydrophilic particle surface. How does that interfere with our chemical resistance? Actually, it doesn't really. So if we apply a wet film, you see here within the film the grafted stabilization system that is embedded in the film. The film sticks to the substrate, and although we would apply drops of water, we have no problem with the resistance, simply because the surfactant that you usually see migrating doesn't migrate in this case, because it's grafted to the polymer, and because of that we have a much better water resistance or general chemical resistance and a much better adhesion, because surfactants naturally migrate to both interfaces, substrate and the surface, and sometimes you lose the adhesion to substrate just because of leaching surfactants, so that doesn't happen in the 36 family. So looking at the two products that we've been developing, 3600 and 3626, basically they have a similar technical data. The main difference in between the two is that the 3600 is an MFFT0 polymer, so for low VOC applications it is more hydrophobic. It can be used for exterior applications. Both of them are what we call multiphase polymers, so made from different polymer materials. Both are eco-label compliant. The 3626 is aimed more for the professional or trade market. Here we have a higher MFFT. It's 40 degrees centigrade, meaning that we will need more co-solvents. But because of the high MFFT, we have a truly lipophobic polymer. And as a consequence, we get a film which is extremely resistant to hand fats, which has been a big problem over the past years with water-based products, and 3626 addresses that. So looking at what have we reached in terms of properties, we've been taking the two products, the AC3626 and the AC3600, and we've compared them to commercial enamels that we bought. And we actually made a small survey among our customers, asked them which are, in your mind, the most popular brands or products in the European market for best application properties, best chemical resistance, etc. And actually most people named the same product as reference. So here in this comparison, you will see 4 commercial enamels, 2 from the do-it-yourself sector, which are actually blends of acrylic and polyurethane. So it's a higher quality, great material. And then we have 2 trade or professional qualities. Professional 1, which is PU acrylic, and Professional 3, which is actually a combination of a urethane acrylic copolymer and an alkyd. Our test formulation, professional and do-it-yourself, is pretty much similar. So we have the same TiO2 content of 21.7%. We have the same polymer solids of approximately 25%. The main difference is the VOC levels. On the professional one, we use some more propylene glycol, some Dovanol DPM, and Texanol. When in the do-it-yourself, we just use propylene glycol and Texanol. But that is the only major difference. So then we've been checking the open time of our products and the commercial grades. We do that with an ASTM test. It's called D7488. And we do that under controlled climatic conditions, so 21 degrees centigrade, 50% humidity. Basically, you apply paint and then you rebrush. You put an X into the paint and then you rebrush it every 5 minutes. And the point where you can still see the cross, as you can see it here on the chart at T meaning 35 minutes, that is where the open time has ended because there is no reflow. And so here on this example, the open time would be 30 minutes. So in white enamels, we've been checking the open time, and what we can see is that the do-it-yourself 6 and professional 3 were the 2 products that we bought with the longest open time. So here we were able to detect a 25 minutes open time, and we see that 3600 and 3626 test formulations reach the same level of open time, whereas Professional 1 and Professional 5 are significantly shorter in their open time and application properties. Some of you might say, oh, 25 minutes for a water-based, that's very long. I've never seen that before. Yeah, that's probably true, but here it is a comparative testing, so we are not so much looking at the actual minutes. It's just a comparison under the same test conditions. But if you do that under these controlled climatic conditions, you can see these kind of levels of open time. Reality is different, weather is different every day, but if you have a product with some which performs better than the others, yeah, you will have some more safety margin to play with during all the seasons of the year. Then we also have tested the blocking resistance. That's important because some products contain alkyds, as you have seen, and here it's done on an opacity chart. We dry that 24 hours at room temperature, and then we load it with 1 kilo for 1 hour at 50 degrees centigrade. So we gave it quite a bit of time to dry, but still you can see that the Professional 3 needs a lot of force to deblock, so the columns actually show the amount of weight that you need to deblock the two surfaces. Also, Do-It-Yourself 6 doesn't perform very well here. Surprisingly, the starting point formulations with 3600 and 3626 are already extremely good, and we had to put even some small numbers on the 3600 to even visualize the column. The interesting thing is that we don't use any additive to improve the blocking resistance, but we can be pretty sure that the commercial paints contain certain materials to improve surface properties. Then what I've mentioned at the beginning, what is important for us is hand-fed resistance. That's something that we've seen over the past years, that especially in countries like the Netherlands, where people had to use water-based systems, there was a significant amount of claims related to certain commercial products, simply because they had fantastic application properties, fantastic look, but they were lacking the hand-fed resistance. And in high traffic zones, such as public buildings, you immediately see that the hand-fed resistance is not good by increased dirt pickup, by films which are becoming softer over time, and yeah, you can actually peel off the paint at some point. So we've been testing that with an Alberdingk test solution that we've been developing and which is available upon request. And we've not just done it in a white paint, because that could be fairly easy, but we've also tinted the paint pretty heavily here with a blue pigment paste, because something that could be good in a white paint, if you tint it, it may lose its hand-fed resistance properties, simply because the dispersants that are being used to stabilize the pigments, especially organic pigments, can have a strong negative impact on the hand-fed resistance. What you can see here is that 3626 outperforms both in white and blue all other products in the hand-fed resistance. 3600 is performing pretty well. It's for an MFFT0 product surprisingly good in hand-fed resistance, but you already see that the hand-fed resistance is reduced when you tint it. The commercial grades, Professional 1, 3, and Do-It-Yourself 5 and 6, are much lower. Only Professional 1, which is actually being sold as being hand-fed resistant, is doing par with the 3600, but is not as good as the 3626. So how does it look like when you have a problem with hand-fed resistance? Here we've been trying to illustrate it a bit. So we've been taking copied the hand with a piece of paper, cut it, put the paper onto a door, and then soak the paper with the hand-fed test solution. After that test, so 16 hours later, we've been removing the oil, and then we've been applying some carbon black, and we've been trying to remove the carbon black. And as you can see on the left side, the Professional 3 paint leaves a strong mark. The film is completely soft and can be destroyed pretty easily, when on the right hand side the paint based on 3626 shows a little ghosting, and that is only because the carbon black is so difficult to remove, but the film remains hard and is intact, and there is no damage on that side of the door. If we look at chemical resistance in general, I mean, hand-fed has been a key thing here, but in general, again, you can see that both products, AC3626 and AC3600 outperform the commercial enamels that we've been buying and testing. The best product here is actually a do-it-yourself product, a do-it-yourself 5. Quite a big surprise that the trade paints were yeah, not a good in chemical resistance, especially stain resistance has been quite disappointing on the trade quality materials. Another important thing, I mentioned that at the beginning, is adhesion. So adhesion tested to ISO 2409. That is important if you sell it into a do-it-yourself market, for instance. People don't want to use a primer. They will apply it on any substrate that they will get across. And you can see that AC3600 here has a fantastic adhesion to all three substrates: galvanized steel, aluminum, and PVC. The professional paints as well as the 3626 are slightly inferior, but that's not really a big problem because in this segment a primer is mandatory and people will use primers without any problem. And a big surprise to us was that do-it-yourself 5 and 6 were not sticking to these substrates, knowing that the typical do-it-yourselfer will not use the primer. So now we are getting close to the end of the presentation, and we come back to the chart that we have seen at the beginning. So initially we said what is the state of the art, and we compare traditional acrylics, alkyds, and polyurethane acrylics. Now you see the same chart again, but we've been adding the AC36 family, and what you can see is that the 36 family addresses all shortfalls of traditional acrylics. The only thing where alkyds and polyurethanes or urethane acrylics are still ahead is the gloss. So we've reached the same open time as an alkyd. We can do much better blocking resistance. We have still an economic price given the properties: high hardness, non-yellowing. The only thing where the alkyd is still superior is the gloss development, and that's still something that we could work on. So outperform with Alberdingk in pigmented enamels. To conclude, AC3626 and 3600 base paints deliver extraordinary long open time as well as excellent blocking resistance and overall chemical resistance. The 3626 base paints are unique, especially to the hand-fed resistance, independent from the tint color that you do. And the 3600 is the first choice for low VOC, interior-exterior use. Now if we look at the 3600 and we look at the do-it-yourself market, we also thought about what could you do once you approve something like a 3600, and we've developed a toolbox. And if you take another Alberdingk product, the AC2403, you could actually take those two dispersions and make lots of different paints with it. So starting only with 3600, we've seen the enamel with the extended open time. But you can also use that for wood stains, and you can use that for interior varnishes. If I look at the Alberdingk 2403 on the other side, it's the first choice for high quality direct-to-metal gloss paints. You can use it for stain locking primers on all sorts of substrates. You can use it as a concrete primer, and you can use it even as an adhesion primer if you want to recoat old powder coated substrates. If you blend the two, you can make products which we call stick to anything paints, so multi-surface paints. No more primer needed, just one coat, different colors, and very broad adhesion profile. Or you can use that as well for pigmented furniture coatings with very, very good stain resistance. So basically you can cover a lot of applications with a minimum of raw materials, but always at an extremely high level of performance, so you will not have to sacrifice any sort of properties. Yeah, we will come to the end now. We can just wish you that the brush may be with you. And just to conclude, formulating with Alberdingk 3626 and 3600 will bring your decorative coating to the next level in application behavior. If you like to receive samples of the polymer dispersions or even the formulated paints for direct testing, just order your sample now at new products at alberdingk-boley.de, and we will be happy to get in touch with you and send you samples for immediate testing. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.